cash games for Week 13 DFS. I think we can go ahead and do
Yes.
that. I'm
Yeah,
your
that'd be
host.
great.
Yeah, I'm your host, CFB_Moose on Twitter, Moose for short, here from OccupyFantasy.com. I'm joined alongside Brian Jester FF on Twitter. Brian is the co-founder of Occupy Fantasy and $1 million single game winner. Let's jump right
Sweet.
into it, Brian. How you doing today?
I'm good, Moose. We got this extended weekend. Pretty nice. You just chilled the last couple of days.
Yeah, chilled and got my new addiction of orange vanilla Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah. Let me see. You got it with you?
Got the orange vanilla Coca-Cola. Mix it with can't do it right now on stream, but mix it with a little rum. Put some TV on. Nice combo.
Nice. That is a solid combo. Shit, dude. You'll have some creative lineups. You get a couple of those going.
As Jake says, that sounds on brand for Moose.
Yeah, given your terrible food takes is definitely on brand.
I will say something that is not terrible is our college football underperforming wide receiver list, which has been absolutely crushing this week since we've debuted it here in the college football plug at OccupyFantasy.com. Some of them are very low owned. Well, I think 5 out of the 6 wide receivers had the flame badge. Can't get much
Yeah,
better than that.
pretty impressive because the buy low receivers for NFL eventually it kind of the word gets out over the course of the week, and some of them are in good matchups too. So some of them end up higher owned than we would like. But yeah, in college football, you don't see these guys' names anywhere, which is why I think most of them were 10-12% at max. So yeah, pretty impressive that you and Lucas put together.
Absolutely. Yep. So we'll be here for about an hour, maybe less, depending on how the chat is. So that means I want you all to be hype, hashtag chaos, all that other kind of stuff. We'll be here for week 13. What you have on the screen here is the daily plug written by our NFL and MLB contributor, Chris Rooney. It's usually in the chat. Chris, if you're in here, say what's up. Not to put you on the spot like that. Um, and while I'm scrolling down here to show the plug, Brian, do you want to say what's so special about this stream? What's the last day today for?
Yeah, today is the last day in November, which means if you're watching this live, it's your final chance to donate bits and become a top cheerer for the month of November. Reminder that our top 3 cheers of the month will receive a portion of my FanDuel Thursday GPP winnings. Not just profit, it's total earnings. So whatever I get back, they'll get a percentage. Right now, we have Festival in the top spot. It's 1,400 bits. Miller Park Drunk in second place with 640. So a pretty sizable lead for Festival. He looks pretty locked in there. And then BKSA, 550 in third. JoJo right behind them in fourth place with just 300 bits. So if you like what we do, and you want to show your appreciation, you can donate the bits. Again, not required, but as a token of our appreciation, we like to give back to the donations and the bit sharers by giving a portion of my winnings. So if you like what we do, go ahead and hit that donate button.
Yep. And if you do like what we do, but you're not about that life, as a token of support, you can still hit that follow button at the top, right? You'll be notified of when we go live. If you're watching this replay here on YouTube, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification to be notified of when we upload some new videos. Now let's jump in
Yes.
right on these questions. We got Jake, the DK Snake, is a VIP member. He says thoughts on Doyle versus Higbee.
Yeah, great question, Jake. And I think a lot of people will be debating this because both these guys will be in increased roles in week 13. Eric Ebron was placed on IR this week, and Jack Doyle should play near 100% of the snaps, run a route on nearly 100% of Jacoby Brissett's dropbacks, whereas Tyler Higbee gets a bump because Gerald Everett is out, and he's facing Arizona, who, as we all know, is the worst tight end defense ever created. So I lean towards Doyle just because of his involvement in the offense, the general involvement of tight end position in Indy's offense.
Yeah.
But if you need to save the money for Higbee, I understand. And especially when I jam in some of the more expensive players this week, I think raw total value, I prefer Doyle if there was no other factors.
Yeah, and I'm looking here at the model. They're relatively the same. Doyle beats him out, Everett out on both sites by a little bit, more on FanDuel. So I think that's because of his touchdown upside. But
Yeah.
great question, Jake.
And actually, Moose, just to expand on that really quickly, I think if someone is in the top 5 of our tight end model and they don't have an on paper good matchup, right? Remember, our model takes into account tight end matchups pretty heavily, at least compared to the other positions. So
Yeah.
someone like Doyle, who doesn't have the excellent Arizona matchup or the Miami matchup, for instance,
Hmm.
you should take a little more seriously, I think, because as we know, defense is a little unpredictable. It is the most predictable at the tight end position, but given the fact that Doyle is ranked that highly with those guys without the premium matchup, makes me lean towards him.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of injuries at the tight end position this week. I remember reading about Zach Ertz. I don't know if he's still doubtful, questionable. You know what the current situation is on that?
Yeah, I think he's going to sit. He
Okay.
has a hamstring injury. He was limited in practice most of the week. He said he was good for Sunday, but their actions indicated otherwise. Today they activated, I think it was Josh Perkins, tight end off the practice squad. And when that happens, generally it means the position that they're calling up, somebody's not going to play the following day. That would be Zach Ertz in this situation.
Hmm.
So we shouldn't be surprised at all to see Goddard get the start and play almost every snap. And if that's the case, he's a huge value.
Yeah, that would be absolutely insane. 4,100 would probably put him one or two, honestly, if Ertz is ruled out.
I would think so. I mean, we know this dude's talented, second
Yeah.
round pick, and he should have a huge role against the Dolphins.
Yep. And I see we got Randy here in the chat. It says glad that Higbee going to pull off that ownership of Doyle. I agree with you on that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you say that now. Wait until Higbee scores 2 touchdowns tomorrow, and let us know. Let us know how you feel.
Yeah. And so let's jump into the game stacks. The game to stack section is the last section that is in front of the paywall of the
Nice.
Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug. You can check that out. Membership as low as $2 per week will get you access to the Daily Plug and Occupy model for all sports that we offer it for. The first one that Chris talks about, the games to stack, is that Tampa Bay Jacksonville game. Do you think we're going to fade Jacksonville again this week, Brian?
No, I don't think we're dumb enough to do it this week. But let me ask you this, Moose. I think we have to have a high level discussion here before we jump into individual game stack discussions. And you and I were talking about it this morning about the weather situation for this
Yeah.
weekend and actually the state of the betting markets and how nearly every game total has dropped. So just as of 6 p.m. Saturday night, we're looking at every game on the main slate. Kansas City and Oakland, the total has dropped 4 points. Green Bay and New York, totals dropped 2.5 points. Carolina and Washington's dropped 2.5 points. Philly and Miami's dropped 2 points. Cleveland and Pittsburgh's dropped 1.5 points.
Okay.
Tampa Bay and Jacksonville's dropped a point. Baltimore and San Francisco's dropped 0.5 point. Only 4 games have had positive increases. None are that great. Chargers, Denver, plus a half. And then Arizona, Rams, Jets, Bengals, Titans, Colts are up a point. Some weather situations are driving some of these. Kansas City, Oakland, 20-mile-an-hour winds.
Not to cut you off real quick. Can I pull up the NFL weather website?
Yes. Let's put it up.
Let's go ahead and pull that up.
Because I was going to say, yeah, the big total drop in Kansas City and Oakland, 20-mile-per-hour sustained winds, gusted a little higher. That will make the wind chill.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the temperature there, 36, wind chill is going to be in the 20s. So not great. And then Carolina and Washington, I think, is actually one of the better games of the slate. But there is a wind 15 to 20 miles per hour. 49ers and Ravens, raining, decent winds. Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, winds near 20 miles per hour. Like just in Packers and Giants, sleet, rain, snow, just a miserable slate. But if all these places have issues, moves, we still have to play some, right?
Yeah, and what I mentioned in our staff chat is, I didn't go into this much of a level of detail, but if everything is shit, then everything is normal on the on the big picture of things. Like if you normalize all of these total moves, a -2 move isn't as bad on a normal slate if everyone is -2 or -4. Yeah. So I mean, I think you have to not necessarily throw that out the window, but don't put as much emphasis on that because it's affecting literally everybody.
You're 100% right. And everyone in the chat is going on this website, NFLweather.com. Jake says that was made on Netscape in 1991. So, yeah, a little GeoCities Angel Fire action here.
Hey, but this is actually one of the better resources I found for NFL weather. I mean, it's straight to the point. You don't need all these crazy ads, all this other kind of stuff. Nope, it's just here's the weather, and that's really all we're good for.
The important stuff we care about: the
Yeah,
wind, rain, temperature. So,
yeah,
um,
and nice little
but yeah,
pictures.
like you said, what'd you say?
And the nice little cute pictures.
Yeah, and the nice 1994 JPEGs. So, but yeah, you're right though. If every situation is shitty, you just have to play the best of the shitty situations.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. As Chris
Chris,
says, yeah, Jets in Cincinnati weather looks okay, but features a 100% chance of shitty teams. As a Bengals fan, that is very true. They are really bad.
yes,
All
very
right,
very true.
so if we talk about that, and then I know all the totals are gone down. Does that put more emphasis on the few games that the total has increased?
Maybe, but I'm not that excited about any of those games. Chargers, Denver has a low total. Has Drew Lock starting at quarterback for Denver.
Yeah.
Rams and Arizona is the most appealing, and I think Chris wrote about that. Jets and Bengals we just talked about. Indy and Tennessee seems like two teams that want to run the ball. So I don't know. I would just prefer. It's not like the winds are like 30 miles per hour,
Yeah.
so it's not like a hurricane gust. I think we can still get by. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with it unless something tomorrow morning drastically changes with the weather and we see totals drop even more. Then I think we're just gonna stick with what we have in the plug.
Makes sense. Um, Benjamin says, "Hey Moose is a Bengals fan. Don't make him feel bad. Already happens every week." Uh,
Yeah.
so Jake has a question. Says, "If all of the weather sucks, are you more inclined to play three running backs?" I assume he means more in high risk.
Yeah, that's a great question. So low risk, obviously want to do that. FanDuel, you generally want to try to do that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
My only question this week, Moose, is we have a lot of underperforming receivers that you want to get into your lineups,
Okay.
and no true. There aren't really many running backs that are like you have to play these guys, at
Yeah.
least in my opinion. So, um, in theory, it makes sense, but I just think there are too many underperforming receivers that are due for explosions that I really want to get them in. So I'm not as pressed to get three running backs to my high risk lineups.
Yeah, and the underperforming wide receivers list is in the Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug, and they have been absolute fire these last few weeks,
Oh
last
yeah.
month or so. Just fantastic work by you on that. Um, let's see. So looks like we got exhausted in the chat. It says, I don't know if I want to stack the Eagles game or Packers. Do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah. So what's up, Exhausted? I don't think we've seen you around here before, so welcome. Uh, I know we wrote about Green Bay and the Giants in the plug for a couple of reasons. Aaron Jones is set to get more volume this week. Matt LaFleur, the head coach, said that they need to get him the ball more, which is always a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much any time that's happened this year, that player has gone out and got a ton of volume. So Devontae Adams, a top play. And then we have some guys who are boosted by injuries to their teammates on the Giants side: Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, as Evan Ingram's out, Golden Tate's out. So some value in that game. However, it is sleety and rainy. If you're thinking about stacking the Eagles game, I really like a 3-by-1 stack in there. So three guys from the Eagles side, one from the Dolphins. Devontae Parker just missed our underperforming receivers list.
Mm-hmm.
He's been getting crazy volume in the passing game. And then you have underpriced guys from Philly side, Miles Sanders in particular, Dallas Goedert, assuming Zach Ertz sits. And then both Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey were on the underperforming receiver list for the past couple of weeks, but they were injured, so they didn't play.
Yeah.
So we assume that their downfield volume will stay the same. And so those guys technically classify as those spots this week. So a three Eagles and one Dolphin, namely Devontae Parker, seems like a better stack in my opinion. And I kind of gravitated towards that here over the last couple of hours as I started building my lineups.
Yeah, so high level question for you. As we talk more about the weather and how crappy it is, do you think it makes sense to lower the number of players that you are putting in a game stack? I know in perfect situations, maybe not perfect situations, normal situations, you try and do the 3x2 stack on these large GPPs. Maybe on a turn, you maybe go 2x1, 3x1, 2x2 maybe. If we're thinking that all these games are going to go a lot lower scoring than expected. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think there are some games where that definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
However, Tampa Bay and Jacksonville, I really like a lot of guys in that game.
Yeah.
So that game, I'm more inclined to go 3-by-2 in super high risk contests, in super high risk fashion. Games like Rams in Arizona, games like Philly and Miami, games like even Kansas City and Oakland, I'd rather go 3-by-1,
Mhm.
unless the games you're looking for to stack 3-by-2 are multiple receivers who can score and eclipse 100 yards, running
Yeah.
backs who can get multiple touchdowns, and there aren't a lot of games like that this week. So I think that's a good call.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense to me. Um, Real quick, I just went ahead and put the chaos emoji because I feel like that's what's going to have to happen,
Yeah.
especially in this. So, for those who don't know, if you are a subscriber, a Twitch Prime subscriber, or Amazon Prime subscriber to us, you get access to all of our emotes. We have the chaos emote as well as the Occupy Fantasy logo. In addition to that, you also get access to our Discord channel. Again, if you have Amazon Prime, it's free. Go ahead and join that. Sub, hit us up. We'll get you the invite link if you can't get to it. And it's really fun. We do a lot more Q&As. We talk a bunch of shit about showdowns, mainly tilting, but it is still really, really fun to have, and we're growing by the day. So if that's your thing, go ahead and sub and get access to the Discord channel. Say what's up to everybody there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Randy Scores has a quick question. It says, is Wentz actually going to be okay? He's been completely awful.
Yeah, man. I was looking at it today, and I was thinking about Wentz and low risk if that was something people wanted to do. And yeah, his hashtag box scores have not been great. So we'll see. They get Lane Johnson back this week, who missed last week with a concussion. That's a huge help to the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Last week he was under pressure just an insane amount. Not to exonerate his play because he played terrible,
Yeah.
but basically they asked rookie tackle Andre Dillard, who was a beast in college and allowed like one pressure and like 700 snaps. But basically they drafted him as a left tackle and they asked him to switch to play right tackle last week to cover for Lane Johnson. And when they interviewed him about it, he was like, it's essentially trying to play basketball and then just start shooting with your left hand. Like it's completely different.
Yeah.
So he got just wrecked in the past game and got benched halfway through the game. So assuming Lane Johnson's back, I think he'll be okay. Dolphins lowest pressure percentage on the slate, 0 players in the secondary. I think he'll be fine this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking about that Tampa Bay game, the first game that there's a stack. At the time of writing, Jameis was the highest rated quarterback in the Occupy model. I'm just seeing, yeah, he still is actually by a wide margin and has increased his margin since opening. His ownership reflects that. He's one of the most popular quarterbacks, if not the most popular quarterback on the slate. What do you think about that game?
I need to play Mike Evans as much as possible is my takeaway.
Okay, and
Uh,
I know we flop back and
yep.
forth between Mike Evans and Godwin. Do you think about playing both, or how do you want to take that?
All right, last 3 weeks. This is the time frame we like to look at. I'm gonna give you some numbers here, Moose.
Okay,
So targets: Chris Godwin 26, Mike Evans 22. Last 3 weeks,
okay,
pretty similar, right? Air yards: Chris Godwin 302, Mike Evans 329. Roughly the same. Over 100 air yards per game, over 7 targets per game. Um, Here's the thing: over those 3 games, Mike Evans has 32 PPR points. Chris Godwin has double that, 64. So just complete underperformance by Mike Evans. We know he's going to get a ton of targets. Jacksonville no longer has Jalen Ramsey. Mike Evans is just in a massive, massive spot here, and I would play him every time over Godwin this week.
that yeah. I mean that again. We talk about opportunity, which that actually needs to be an emote here, our third emote. We got to figure out some way how to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking here. Yeah, Mike Evans is a top 10 on the main slate in our wide receiver model. But his ownership shows. So between 18 and 22% ownership, are you just going to over leverage that like crazy?
Yeah, my first FanDuel run I did, and I think it's pretty much done unless something changes. But I ended up with close to 40% Evans. Like I really like him that much this week. Obviously, I'm stacking that game, so it's going to inflate his
Mm-hmm.
exposure for me. But even in games where I'm not stacking, I really like Evans a lot. And again, I think he's one of the top guys in Josh Hermsmeyer's air yards by low model, and those guys, and especially in good matchups, high totals, those guys are going to be super popular.
Yeah. Randy makes a point. He says, Godwin would be the ownership leverage play in big field. Um, but I don't necessarily know. I mean, if you like a guy, even though he's 20, 30% owned, if he's a part of your stack, if the stars align, and you double that to get even leverage, you're still getting leverage compared to if you played Godwin.
Right, exactly. And also, what a freaking time in DFS where a guy who just scored 37 points is considered leverage the following week.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. Jake says, worry about Ertz' health at all. Looks like he's not going to play.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think worried's a good word. I don't know if it's worried. I think it's just that they're playing Miami. We saw the Chargers rest a bunch of guys earlier this year against the Dolphins. I think Philly will do the same with Zach Ertz.
yeah. Who was it? Randy says, with all the tight ends on the slate, where the hell do you go? I guess that's kind of what the model's for, right?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. And the thing
Yeah,
is,
it's
if you're
tough.
making a bunch of lineups, you can kind of split your ownership or exposure amongst the different guys. But I always prefer paying down at tight end if I'm making just a handful of lineups.
Okay.
And I think guys like Doyle and Higbee and Goddard, really make that possibility the best option this week.
Yeah, it's so tough paying, 67, 72 for tight ends. That's so tough.
It's really, really tough. Yeah. I think I would just gravitate towards those lower priced guys.
Yeah, good question. So keep them coming. Go ahead. If you have questions, we'll be here for a couple more minutes, like 30 minutes or so. Bismo says, I love the Tampa Bay Jacksonville showdown slate. Um, I always forget that there's like actual showdowns in between. Um, Real quick, who would your captain be for that?
Probably Mike Evans.
Yeah.
And on DraftKings, I would also consider Chris Conley, who also joins our underperforming receiver list.
Okay. I really wish that DraftKings had better like higher prizes for these like middle main slate showdowns. If that makes
I know,
sense.
me too. And I think I was talking with Chris about this, and we were wondering if and it probably is. I'm just speaking, thinking out loud here. It probably is more profitable considering showdown slates.
Hmm.
That if let's just say this year you go back and you looked at your results and you haven't done that great in main slate cash games or main slate high risk even, should you move some of that allocation over to the Sunday afternoon showdown slates instead? Because we know we can probably beat those. I think it just depends on answering my own question here, looking at your own results and how you've been doing in showdown versus main slate.
Yeah. Even then, even if you are doing well in main, but let's say if you still like, hey, maybe if I again look at your results, though, it's like it may be tougher to get satellite tickets or something like that
It's true. It's
for
true.
main slate. But maybe for I'm looking here, they have a $3 showdown qualifier. Top three of 23 get a Millie Maker ticket. That's not
Right.
bad.
It's very possible. I mean, 99% of people aren't trying to grind, 100 millionaire tickets. They're trying to get one or two.
Yeah.
And like that's a very easy way to go about it in a showdown.
And I'm just looking here for that exact contest I mentioned. Um, there's only been 8 entries so far. 6 of the 8 don't have a badge.
See, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I guarantee those fields are way softer than the main slate.
Yeah. Looking here, there's another one. Again, last time I'll mention it. We can actually move on to something. 21 entries so far. Only 4 have a badge. So it looks like a
Wow.
lot of non-experienced players or no badge players. Didn't mean to classify them as that. Are playing some of these contests. So that could be some way to exploit it.
Yeah, I mean that's another answer to the question. Like the fact that those fields are lacking experienced players is probably another reason you should probably play them. So
Yeah, absolutely. So next game on the slate here is the Rams in Arizona that Chris wrote up. I know you love going bankrupt with Arizona.
you know it.
You know it. Um, yeah, Jared Goff has been pretty shitty lately, but as Chris writes, that may change with a matchup against the Cardinals. They get the fully healthy wide receiver group with Cup, Woods, and Cooks. And how do you tackle this game?
Yeah, I really like just stacking it from the Ram side.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, as we talk about $1 million mission, I love double stacking both sides of the game.
Yeah.
But for me, there's not a ton of guys in Arizona I'm thrilled about. It's Christian Kirk, it's Kenyon Drake, assuming he takes the lead role again. And by all accounts, it sounds like he will.
Mm-hmm.
So just a couple guys on the Arizona side. But on the Ram side, you can stack Todd Gurley, all 3 receivers, Tyler Higbee. So lots of different variations for the Ram side. And that I like doing that. Three Rams running back with just 1 Cardinal, maybe 2 if you go Kirk and Drake in a big contest, but big fan of the Rams side in this one.
Yeah, makes sense. And I see Slicks Todd just re-subscribed with Twitch Prime. He's been subscribed for 2 months. Shout out to Slicks Todd. Awesome for him.
Thank you, sir.
Again, if you haven't heard it earlier, if you do subscribe to us, whether through Twitch Prime or regular Twitch, you do get access to the Discord, as Brian put in the chat here. If you can get free Prime with Amazon Prime or subscription to Amazon Prime, you get access to our Discord channel. If you don't have access to it, hit us up. We'll go ahead and get you all access. And really, really fun. We do a lot of Q&As, talk a lot of stuff, especially on some of the more niche sports like college football, where information can come like that.
Yeah. Also, it's not widely known. At least I don't think it's widely known for people. If you do subscribe with Twitch, I think you have to manually resubscribe every month, or it will boot you from the Discord, and it will boot your subscription. So just make sure once it expires to go in and into your Twitch account and resubscribe to us if that's something you want to do.
Okay, cool. Randy says golf at 2.5% is good. I think he means ownership. Let's look at his ownership really quick. Yeah, about 2 to 4%, depending on the site. He is the second highest quarterback on the slate. That's a really good thing there.
Yeah, and I like even their position players' ownership. No one really is over 12%, so
yeah,
that's huge for me.
Absolutely. And then this last game, the Green Bay game, we kind of already talked about it with, I forgot what his name was, asked about it. But is there anything else you want to go into in detail about it?
I think we covered most of the sides here. We just got to keep an eye on the weather. And again, if the total continues to drop in the morning, we see, a lot of times, or am I wrong here? A lot of times these weather moves Sunday mornings, they've already happened by the time we wake up, right? Like 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and I think that's generally speaking because you have these sharp guys, the syndicates, who already know how the public's going to move, so they're just putting, let's say, a half unit or a unit or something like that. Not necessarily as they think that's the best play. They just know that they're getting out in front of what the move is going to be. So if they know the public's going to come in and 90% of them Sunday morning are going to say, oh, shit, it's raining, I got to bet the under, they're going to go ahead and get about that. So if for some reason they need to buy off of it, do anything like that, they still have that middle opportunity. They still got the best line.
Right, or they can just keep their line that's beating the closing line if that's something. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So long story short, when you wake up tomorrow, whether it's super early or it's 9, 10, 11 o'clock or 30 minutes before kickoff, we'll know if that weather has affected the total or not.
Yep, absolutely. Now, one of the metrics that I like, the main metrics that I like to use, it's a formula that I have that ranks game stacks. And I know this sounds so shitty, but
hey, listen. Last week Tennessee and Jacksonville sounded shitty, and we both ignored our beliefs. So let's hear what it is this week.
I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but if you ran a majority Philly stack, you bumped it back around with Miami, that's not bad, man. I really like that. You do like a 2x1 or 3x1 stack.
Oh man, I'm loving it. Like multiple Philly lineups, or even if you just do one. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Like so many guys are underpriced on that Philly side that with the number 2 team total, like they should be able to eat. 3 or 4 guys can score 20 points in this game, which is what you're looking for in high risk. So I'm a big fan of it. 27, nearly 28 points on their team total, number 2 overall. Yeah, Wentz is cheap. Dolphins at least have one guy to run it back with, maybe 2. So
do you think? So let's say if you're building, let's say, I don't know, 20 lineups like I do, or maybe even 150 like you do, and if you decide to go that route with X amount of lineups, do you just run all your Philly players around Devontae Parker? Do you throw in like Ballage or Gesicki in at any spots? How would you take that?
It's really tough. So just for what I did, and again, this is 150, and we'll have to scale this down if we are making 20 or less lineups. I did. I'm just looking right now. I had let's say 17% of my lineups have Philly stacks.
Okay.
15% of them, 15% overall have Parker. So, all but whatever 2 out of 17 is have Parker. So yeah, I would mostly go Parker just because he's a volume hog and is on the underperforming receiver list. Maybe you go Allen Hurns as another receiver, Mike Gesicki at tight end, like you said. Ballage I wouldn't use.
Mhm.
I think making less lineups, I would just only use Parker from the other side.
So all right, so here question for you is: does this sound positive EV? Let's say if you're like me, you're doing 20 lineups, you put it in a quarter jukebox to try out MME. If you go all 20 lineups with the Philly Miami stack, you do 100% Devontae Parker in those lineups. Maybe mix a couple of different Philly players. Really stick between 3 and 4 players, but then you have another small player pool that just kind of mixes all those guys around. So if your core hits, you have a lot better chance of your island plays hitting because you have more of them. Does that
Right.
does
Yep.
that does that sound like a possible strategy for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one game stack is pretty risky for 20 lineups. I would probably do two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think you have the right idea. And as we talked about, and I talked about in that Reddit thread, that Q&A, the less number of lineups you have, the smaller your core has to be. Don't be afraid to go 80 or 100% on some guys
Yeah.
because you're going to lose 80% of the time anyways. So you might as well increase the upside by having a couple guys in most or all of your lineups.
Yeah. Absolutely. AJ has a season-long question. Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, or Benny Snell for flex play.
It's between Samuel and Williams for me. I would probably go Mike Williams.
Okay. Yeah. For my season long, I am actually 4-8 with almost tied for that last playoff spot. I need I need 5 of the 6 games to go my way to get it on like the third tiebreaker, or the third tiebreaker qualification.
You
And
got it.
hey, someone's got to,
Yep.
right? Jake has a question. Says, "What's up with Jonathan Williams? Is he going to keep rolling?"
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, that game plan was super weird and frustrating on that Thursday night game where they gave him like 1,000 touches, but they like him and they're going to continue to give him the ball more than likely. So yeah, I think so.
And Bismo comes out with his Mike Williams. His beeper says, "Did someone say Mike Williams?"
Yeah, we all have our alert set up that no matter if anyone in the universe says it, we get an alert on our phone. Um, Lucas has a little Jordan Humphrey alert. Bismo clearly has a Mike Williams alert set up on his phone.
Yep. Jimmy CD says, talking about that Philly Miami stack, are any of these in play? Hearns, Wilson, and Parker fits? Like, does that sound like a high upside lineup? I would lean towards no. I don't think Miami, as a whole stack, has that upside. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I don't know. Albert Wilson's still not a full-time player, so that's kind of tough for me. I know he's got 6 and 7 targets, but they're all been low A dot targets. I would prefer Hearns and Wilson. I mean Hearns and Parker. Sorry, Gesicki, like Chris says, right behind. I would throw in too, but even then, I'm not a big fan of the Miami side unless you're playing multiple 100-player leagues or something.
Yeah, but even then, I still think there's other better ways to go about it.
I just prefer the Philly side and running the back with one Dolphin.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got about maybe 10 more minutes left. Let's get some questions in. Um, let's see here. Jake says, "Why isn't Baltimore defense more expensive?"
Yeah, lots of respect for that San Francisco offense, and Baltimore's defense has been trending up the last couple of weeks, especially with the acquisition of Marcus Peters.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I'm not mistaken, they haven't played, the greatest competition. So we'll see how they do here.
And you know what I think is interesting is I know we always talk about hashtag trust the model. Lamar has been on the absolute most godsend. Our model has no idea how to handle him
Nope.
to some extent. He's actually the 4th worst quarterback on the slate, and is trending downward. He is he's zero point 0.1 of index points ahead of Drew Lock.
Yeah, Bill Polian does our Lamar Jackson projections. So
Who is that?
he's the former Colts GM who said that Lamar Jackson should be a receiver.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
Let's see. Chris came about in the chat from his Crowns alert.
Speaking of crowns.
Yep. Jimmy TD says Higbee. Everett's ruled out. Yeah, Higbee's a good option.
Yeah, we talked about if you want more discussion about him. We talked about him near the beginning of the show.
Yep. Helmy's father, who's a Twitch Prime subscriber, says, I really want to stack Arizona, but I have no idea who I can count on in the combo with Kyler.
Yeah, Christian Kirk is the easy answer. You look at his involvement the last couple of weeks. I mean, even since he's been back, like Christian Kirk, the last 3 games. Just looking at it really quickly. Leads the team in targets 24. Larry Fitzgerald next closest 17. Has like 4 times as many air yards as Larry Fitzgerald. Just insane opportunity for Christian Kirk. And then Kenyon Drake has taken a hold of the backfield and is used in the passing game. So those would be the 2 guys I like, and that would really be it for me.
Yeah, I was looking here as well. It's tough to try and go any more than those 4 or 5 guys. They have no tight end really to play. They have no wide receiver depth.
I mean, they keep rotating receivers,
Yeah.
which makes it tough. So
Yeah,
Isabella,
exactly.
Cooper, Keyshawn, all those guys are rotating. So, outside of Kirk and Fitzgerald, they're the only ones really playing most of the snaps.
Exactly, yeah. All right, let's see.
Jake with a question about the Giants receivers. Sterling Shepard is a chalk. Darius Slayton leverage. Yeah, I love that idea in high risk contests. Again, we have to keep an eye on the weather, but clearly Slayton and Daniel Jones have a connection. So with Golden Tate out, with Evan Ingram out, I really like that call a lot. Shepard's in a good spot. I mean, for low risk contests, I wouldn't say he's must play, but he's right up there, one of the better plays. But Slayton in high risk is certainly a good option.
Yeah. One guy I wanted to talk about that I knew was going to be towards the top of the model, and I'm sure most people will know. I'm actually surprised his ownership isn't a lot higher. But Terry McLaurin, we watch the Redskins game every week. Not by my choice, but I mean, he just missed so many opportunities. Haskins just cannot get on target with him. He missed a bunch of open throws. Open passes, and I thought that was going to drag him a lot lower in the model. I didn't expect him to be top 10 this week.
Dude, 16 targets the last 2 games, so 8 targets a game, 289 depth of target, nearly 18 yards.
Yeah,
It's caught just 8 of them, 0 touchdowns. That type of opportunity doesn't continue to underperform, which is a big reason why we like him here. I love the Carolina side of that game, running the back with McLaurin. So I know it's a low total, but McLaurin's high for a reason. When someone is not super expensive and that high in the receiver model, that should really cause your senses to tingle.
those eye emojis. Yeah, I mean he's projected to be about 4 to 6% owned on depending on what site you're on. He's trending downward on DraftKings, but trending up on FanDuel according to our OF index change columns. But even then, we like to look at wide receivers who have a OF index. Technically, 60 is the elite mark, but 50 is a good mark. He surpasses that. Great island play if you're looking at someone. He's relatively cheap too.
Yeah, as Randy Scora says, not all air yards are created equal. And ask Curtis Samuel. That's definitely a real thing. However, we like to look at these outlier cases, but over time, these guys are still going to hit. So, yeah, we'll have Curtis Samuel have league worst accuracy on deep targets. But again, if you keep getting deep targets, you eventually crush. So,
Yeah.
keep playing those guys.
Absolutely. All right, rapid fire. 5 or so minutes left. Keep them coming. As Jake says, Haskins is breaking the air yards model the same way Jackson breaking our model. Jimmy Touchdown says, how much ownership on McCaffrey will you guys have?
I think there are enough cheap guys and enough cheap stacks. I will probably double the field. I think the field is going to have, let me see here, let me pull it up. I'm on DFS Magic now and just created it. So the field has 24%, so I will go 24, even 48, 50%, what I think is reasonable, especially if you're playing just a handful of lineups.
Yeah. It's when I first tried to build for cash, it was tough to include him in cash, so I'm trying to figure out if I can include him in cash, but I don't know. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's tough. Helmy's father says, how many lineups Do I have to run CMC? He's dumb expensive. Also, if I do, you got any inexpensive guys that have a good game? I think the best one to fit in that, I don't know if he's going to have a good game or not, would probably be Miles Sanders to fit him in, right?
Yeah, Miles Sanders to balance that out. I mean, McCaffrey is the number one running back in our model this week, which we haven't seen since he's been over $10,000. So that should say enough for you.
And if you look, he has 42 projected weighted opportunities, which is
so stupid.
Actually insane. That's really really good. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he might end up being higher than 24%. We'll see how the Sunday morning ownership update shows. But yeah, he's not as hard to fit in this week.
Yeah.
Some cheaper receivers you can fit in. So
cool. All right. Touchdown or defensive touchdown plug of the week. Who do you think is going to be that slate breaker for defense?
Oh, good question. Let me pull up the model really quickly to let me see here. I will say it is the Chargers.
Okay.
Chargers are one of my favorite defenses this week.
Nice. I wish they weren't so expensive, but the Rams defense, I like the Rams defense.
Yeah.
Like in a bubble where salary doesn't matter. But including with salary, they're literally like the worst defense in our model. If I had to go with someone who I would actually play, probably Cincinnati, maybe Washington. Again, I know that's kind of a recency bias there. Carolina is the top of our model, so maybe them as well. I know I kind of copped out and gave like 6 defenses.
If I had to guess, it would be one of these 14 teams.
Yeah. Hey, someone's got to break the slate, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see here. Yeah, as Jake says, there's a ton of value this week. I don't know if he's meaning defenses or not. Bismo says, good luck tomorrow, everybody. Let's get it. Yep.
I mean, receiver especially, tons of value. Tight end value. Like, it makes it easier to fit in.
Absolutely. All right, so if we don't have any more questions these last minute or so, let's see. Jimmy says, any kind words from Melvin Gordon?
Yeah, I love him this week. I think that he'll get 20 plus opportunities in a game where they should lead. Big fan of Melvin Gordon this week.
Nice. Let's see here. Jake says, have you guys finished your Lazius Fit investigation?
I think we have, Moose. Or do we want to say this publicly, or we can put it in the Discord, or even not release it at all? Do we think we have a pretty good understanding of what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, I went back all the way through 2018, every big tournament that he's entered, and what it looks like he's doing. I'm not saying that this is what he is doing, but what it looks like he's doing is he's just matching the field on every player. Is maximizing his number of players. That's why he's spreading out 20, 25 quarterbacks, 20, 25 defenses. And I assume he's using using some sort of optimizer to match this all up, and he has some sort of projected ownership.
Basically, like if he thinks McCaffrey's going to be 15% owned, he'll have McCaffrey 15%. If he thinks, give me a shitty tight end, I don't know.
Let's look. If he thinks, let's see what the worst tight end is in the model. Yeah, so like Cameron Brate at less than 1%. He'll have it at less than 1%.
Yeah, he'll have him in one of 150. Like we're pretty sure that's what he's doing, and adding in at least a quarterback receiver combo most of the time. But again, we're still doing some finalizing on the investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last question, then we'll get out of here. Jimmy Touchdown says, Thielen or Diggs this week?
I'm not 100% sure Thielen plays, so I say Diggs.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take us out of here, Brian. If you like what we do, go ahead and hit that follow button. You'll be notified of when we go live. We'll be back at it again here on Tuesday with Brian's $1 Million Mission. You have, if you have maybe 30 seconds, you can get that #1 spot for the Bit Cheers. You get access to Brian's GPP earnings for next Thursday. Festival at the lead, Miller Park Drunk at second, BKSA at third. I'm sure we'll also do something for JoJo, who gifted 5 subs, so shout out to him.
For sure.
Definitely. If you are a subscriber and you don't have access to our Discord channel, please, please, please message us. Hit us up on Twitter, however you want to do, so we can get you access to the Discord channel. Really, really fun over there. If you want to subscribe, you can use Amazon Prime. Get a free Prime subscription to us for each month. If you want to check out the full daily plug and Occupy model, check it out, occupyfantasy.com. Membership starts as low as $2 per week with the annual subscription, $6 a week on a weekly basis. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Did you get Chris's Periscope tomorrow morning?
No, I didn't, but you did. Chris has a Periscope tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., breaking down a lot more breaking news, injury reports. He runs down a bunch of the games. High quality.
Questions?
High quality. Yeah, he does answers questions as well. Really, really good there. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at Occupy Fantasy so you get notified of when he goes live. You can follow me on Twitter at CFB_Moose. You can follow Brian on Twitter at BrianJesterFF. That being said, guys, good luck and have a good night.
Peace.